Hi, this is Miss Lisa, the sewing lady of Pinellas Park, Florida, USA. Today we're going to rehash a little bit of what we've already been doing. I went and I looked back at what I was doing, and I thought maybe there was a few parts that weren't as clear to everybody as it is to me. So we're going to work on it. But the first thing is I want to show you a purchase I made. Now mind you, I'm teaching you pattern making, but I'm always on the lookout for vintage stuff that was really cool so many years ago. And this was cool when I was like in my teens. No, 13. Yeah, I was 13 when it was cool. And what it is, it was called the Perfect Fit. And the woman I bought it from, I thought it was a good deal. I didn't pay, like $100. I think it was like 30. And it came with pattern papers. And this was the neat part. Look at all of this. This is the stuff that makes pattern making so easy. One of those wonderful, this is the crotch curve. When we get to pants, this sucker is coming out. And we have different rulers for different things. We have one here that when you hook this piece in, it helps you make a dart in your dress or in your pants. Really cool. This big one, I believe, is the hip one. They call it the designer curve, but it is just like the coolest thing. And considering how little I paid for everything, one of these bad boys can cost you like $50 just by itself. Look at all the stuff that came with it. I mean, it's amazing. And I love it. I was just over the moon. I sent the lady an extra email after I received it to let her know I was just so thrilled with my purchase. But these are the kind of things that, I kind of look around for. I also look for crazy things that were used for sewing in the past. And some stuff is still used, but they probably look different. I think y'all may know about this one. This is the one you use for if you have the colored paper and you want to leave like little hash marks for, where you have to pin it, or if you're doing a dart, you might do the whole dart with it. This one is from the 20s, 1920s. Amazing. Amazing to me. And it was just cool because it came in a box that my husband got that was for cigarettes. It came with this and a big needle and some straight pins, and I think there was a snaps, a little bit of snaps, and they were all really old. So they're kind of neat, huh? Alright, I'm going to move all this stuff off, and just so you know, still a little bit slow on things, so got my notes. So I won't get lost on this stuff. Sometimes I do kind of get lost, but not today. Alright, last time we were talking, and I showed you something, and I need to find it. There it is. Okay, we talked about facings, and I think I ended up cutting off at that point because we were having issues on my end. I was getting tired. And if I get too tired, well, it just ain't fun. So sometimes I have to stop and take a rest. But the thing I didn't really show you, beyond, I was telling you, you had to make the curve. And I did mine here. But what I forgot to tell you is don't cut it off the pattern. You want to make a copy of one. So what you would do is take a piece of paper and you look over it. See, this paper I can see through real easy. So what I would do is leave some room so you got you know, some room for your seams and everything. And I would just copy it off of there. Make sure you do both edges. And what I'm going to add is, on top of mine here, is the seam allowance for the front. And then I'm going to give you the seam allowance for the shoulder. And then for this side, this I'm going to give you a tiny little one, because there's a couple choices on what you can do with this. And yeah, my moments here, sometimes I'm not as straight, and trust me, everybody gets that. Alright? And so, if you remember, whenever you see a U shape with little arrows at the end, that means it's on the fold. Very important, because some things just don't work if they're not on the fold. And this is only the front. We're going to show you the back as well. And always mark your patterns what they are. I know, eventually you'll be like me, and somebody can show something and you can go facing, or sleeve, or cuff. But when you're first starting, it could be anything. So on mine I'm putting front facing. Alright. Now, you cut this out of your fabric, okay? The next part that you need to consider is the back one, which we're going to do the same way, and I am going to show you how. But we also got to talk about something that we really haven't touched on much. How do you finish it? How do you make that edge work for you? Well, when I was much younger, I thought the only way to do it was to just fold it over, stitch it down, and then tack it in. Well, you can see the stitches on the front and on the back, so it didn't look so good. And then I got sewing books. I got old sewing books. The ones that are from like before the 50s are amazing. Because at that time, zigzag wasn't quite there. There was a few places that offered it, but they were very expensive. So most people only had straight stitch to work with. How did they manage this job? Well, the other thing that people used a lot, that a lot of people don't even think to use anymore, are a special pair of scissors. And I know they're right over here because I used them last night. And yes, I just dumped everything on the floor. I'm really good at that. These scissors, they got gator blades on them, if you think. And if you're very lucky, you oil them good, they'll work very good. I'm going to show you with a piece of the fabric what it looks like. Since I got a lot of width here, I already did it on this piece there, so I'm going to show you off on this side seam. But I want you to look at this, because when this cuts with the scissors, what it does, it leaves the edges so they don't fray. You know when your fabric gets that furry edge and you start having threads come out, and sometimes they come out at the wrong moment? This is one of those things that stops it. So when you're making one of these, your best bet is just going to be where I have that seam line there. Just go around. And yeah, I know I'm cutting on paper, but these things really take a beating, so pattern paper is different than regular paper. And I can go around above where my seam allowance is, and later on when I stitched it into the top of the dress, I might even shave off a little more just so it sits right in here, because sometimes when you do them and you have too much fabric left over, you get this line and people can see that, hey, you didn't finish it, and it looks really much better. So, and Now we are going to make the back facing. Alright, I'm kind of using a little bit because, hey, there's already a curve there. Let's go with it. So, you just take it down the front, and then you go around, up to the top, across, and you don't have to go that far, so bring it down around. You kind of get a feel for how big you want these things. But if you're in doubt if one's bigger than the other, just kind of, you know, where did that other one go? Because I want to show you what we did with it. There it is. You want to make sure that these guys are going to meet. So it's a good thing I checked, because this one is going to need a little more slant to it. And I don't know. Let me see. It's going to have to be this side. Well, actually it should come from the bottom. So we'll go up and take off that extra piece. Alright. As you see, I left that part there so there'd be a little room. This back one, normally, not all the time, but normally, is got a different edge. It's usually when you fold the fabric and you got the straight edge here, and this is where this pattern would go. It'd be going along the straight edge, not the folded. Okay? And that's making that. Big deal for these. Make sure the ends are the same size. Whoops, wrong one. It's got to go this way. Make sure these are the same width. If this one's a little off, trim it down, because it makes it so much more easy when you're sewing it. Now, like we mentioned, there was the thing about using the scissors with the alligator edge. Well, not everybody's got that. There's other ways. If you only have straight stitch, you make a tiny little line right next to the edge, and then you make another tiny line right next to it and use a really small stitch. For you guys that have the old styles, it can be as small as a 20 stitch to the inch. With the new guys, I think like 1.5 is the number you want to go to. But use really small stitches, and it won't show through. Because if you're using a lighter weight fabric like what I'm wearing, it would definitely show. And the reason I don't like that fold over thing is it leaves a lump, and it just kind of takes away. The only way you can make it look really great is if you've got it nicely rounded, you could put trim right where that is, and then nobody would be the wiser. But trim takes a bit. It's called top stitching that you do on it. Some people are good at it, some people aren't. You gotta go with it. Me? With a few tools, I can do it. But it's not my favorite part of the sewing. I like doing the body, I like doing the design. As you can tell, I'm wearing the new dress. And yes, I just realized earlier that I gotta take it in a little. It's just a hair too big. Who knew? But that's what I get for losing weight. Yeah, it's coming off, ladies. Been working at it. Alrighty. So, going back to my notes, which I am hiding. Oh, Miss Lisa's throwing her stuff around. What are we gonna do? Alright. My croquis, which is this pattern, doesn't fit me anymore. I lost weight. So, I have to go back and rebuild mine. And while I was doing that, I had a thought. See, I like how this dress comes straight down as opposed to the bigger dress, because the bigger dress kind of made me look bigger, didn't it? So when I do mine, this is going to get narrowed down and come in a little bit. And I bet you there's a bunch of you women that really want that style too. And it's easy to do. The thing you got to remember is when you want to make a change for a width down here, figure out how much of you is hip. Now, when I look down the side of me, I can do the full spread of my hands, and that is my hip area. That's going to be the biggest part of me. Okay? And then, all I have to do is find a ruler. And on my ruler, I'm pretty sure my spread, yeah, it's 8.5 inches of me. And that's considered the area you do not change. The other thing is I did learn that if you like the pegged skirt style, that's the one that's fairly tight going down to the knees, it's actually supposed to be the same width at the bottom as your waist measurement. Now if you're like me and everything falls in almost the same group, well, you probably aren't going to get far with it. In that case, you can probably take it in maybe, let's say 3-4 inches, but you've got to do it nice and smooth. If you do it really blocky, it'll be noticeable. It'll kind of look like you got a balloon going here and come down. So keep that in mind. And whenever you do something where you're narrowing it, your hem has to be able, when you cut that out and you have your hem allowance, you want to give it like a little tent edge coming out, because it's going to be wider at the top, narrower at the bottom. So you need to know those things. Okay. So I will be working on mine again, and I even noticed it when I was making this dress, because yes, I did use my pattern for that. The dress is actually a little big. I'm going to be taking it in a little bit, and I'm going to do it in the ribbon, not in the seam, because I can put little darts through here. They look great, and they do the job. One of the things you guys probably want to know is, well, I bought a store-bought pattern. What do I do with it? Well, my first inclination is to say, throw away those directions, don't read them, because they will confuse you. So, if you guys are going that way with the sewing, the main thing is the markings on the patterns. Where you have a dart, you want to make markings. You need the point, you need the outer angles. If you mark just at the edge and you mark one right at the center where it's supposed to be, you should come out with a good dart, because you're just going to fold it over. And if you want, and I've done this on a few of my fabrics, I just take a pencil and make the line, make that arrow's line that you need. Everything that has a little marking or a jig out, like the double diamond or the single diamonds, mark them. That's important. When you're making your own pattern like this, you may decide you want to do that, and I will show you that, especially when we make a sleeve, because it's really important to get that part right. If you're using a commercial pattern, think it out before you start. Really look over each pattern piece. Make sure, should it be on the fold or should it be on the straight side? If you get this part wrong, some stuff is not so easy to fix. Others are easier. But you really have to pay attention. You got to look. There's a long arrow. That long arrow, you want to make sure is exactly even with the edge of the fabric. So I'm going to use this point as my arrow here. And what a lot of people do is they actually measure where their arrow is. Mine's exactly 8 inches. And so it's got to be 8 inches all the way down. we had to take a break, and while I was on break, I pulled out a pattern. Now this pattern's been around for a while because I actually made it for my mother, and that was back in the 70s. So yeah, it's a bit old. But it's got all the same things that all the modern patterns have. This was one of those 3-size patterns, so you could change it. And well, we had to go to the biggest, so that was the 20. And it really was a very simple pattern. It's the blouse that's in here, and it's just a little gathered with elastic, and then it's got its sleeve, and you can make the sleeve short or long depending on what you want. I didn't like the short sleeve, my mom did, and you know, when you get to a certain age and you put that puff sleeve on you, nah, you need to change. But that's what she wanted, so that's what I made it. And she also wanted it in peach gingham. Peach gingham is not pretty. I'm sorry, I have not seen anybody wear it that it looks good on. There's got to be someone, or they wouldn't make it. But for me, it's probably only good for quilts. But that's my theory. Alright, a lot of times you'll see different arrows. Now this is something you don't see as much in the modern patterns. This one actually tells you to start sewing from the underarm up to the top. And that was smart because when you pin your pieces together, this little section right here stretches a little bit more than the rest of the pattern. And if you want to make your pieces fit, you will stretch this a little bit. And so when you're doing this, and if you come from this end, it does go a lot easier. They have other things on here. Remember my little thing? Well, this is what the big ones look like, and that means it goes on the fold of the fabric. Don't ever forget that that's what that means. It only comes here in 3 languages. One is English, one is Spanish, and one is French. They used to have German as well, and they'd stopped that. I don't know why. Because I got patterns from the 50s that have German on them. Alright, this is one of those times where the front and the back are on the fold. And it actually gives you the notch, and you need to match that notch to the notch on the sleeve. This notch matches this notch. And when you do that and you match everything up, this should come out perfect. If you don't match your notches, it's gonna kind of not look right, and you're gonna be trimming here and there, and you might not like it when you get done. You might feel like you wasted your fabric too, which you should never do. There's no reason to waste it. There's always something you can do with your fabric, from quilting it to using it for patches, everything. But this pattern doesn't have as many markings on it as I would hope, because there are a lot more markings. I'm surprised. Oh, no, I take it back. It's on the sleeve. Don't know why. Oh yeah, I do know why. Whenever it's on the fold, the fabric is always straight. That's if you lined up your fabric the right way. This is here. That's that long arrow, and that means it goes with the grain. Alright, now, this is one of those little points that people kind of flutter about. Sometimes, and I do it a lot, instead of matching my edges this way, I fold the fabric over this way because I want the lengths. I want the long lengths because a lot of my fabric comes 60-inch wide. And people are like, oh, you shouldn't do that. Well, I've never split a seam, I've never had any issues with it, and most of the fabrics you have today, that's not a problem. Way back when, cotton fabric had a little bit of a habit of doing that, but since we've industrialized, it's done much better, it's a tighter weave, and you don't run into that problem. And it works really great for us big girls because a lot of times we'll have only one item that needs to be on the fold, and then you got all that room left to put all the other little pieces in. And you just push them in as tight as you can. Have it where the edges of patterns are right together, so you could even cut a nice even one and be cutting them both at the same time. It's what I do, because leaving that big space between them is waste, and you don't want to waste. And eventually, with making a pattern, you're going to know exactly how much fabric you need. And that will be if it's 45-inch wide, if it's 60-inch wide. I actually have fabric that's 72-inch wide. So you're going to learn that stuff as you sew. I know you guys want to get to doing the sewing machine, but this pattern making stuff is so important. Because if you don't know how to make the pattern, you want to know what? You're not going to get what I'm doing on the sewing machine. Because you got to have a sense of what making a pattern's about and how to choose a pattern. You know, not every pattern looks good on everybody. So you've got to really think about what style looks good on you. Go to the store, try on 20 dresses or whatever you want, and find the one that fits you the best, you're most comfortable in. Sit down in it, see what it feels like, and then you'll know this is the style pattern I want to have. And then as we go along, we'll be making those pattern pieces. So you'll be able to have pants that really fit you, blouses that look nice. I'm not going to teach you t-shirts because they're so cheap. You can buy them unless you guys want to do a real, what they call a fancy t-shirt, but I'm probably not going to do that. Do skirts. Everybody got to have one skirt in your collection. Well, not everybody, but most people. And I'm even going to throw in doing a vest, because vests are neat. If you have a little bit of weight, they sit on you just perfect. They make you look so thin. I think they're perfect. And especially when the climate gets a little cooler, even here in Florida, we actually do have cooler weather. It's just right for the covering, and it just gives you enough warmth there, and your sleeves are free. So that's another thing. We might get into a jacket, but I'm not going to do a super structured jacket. I'll leave that for somebody else, because that is when you become a professional sewer. Because there is a lot to do with a very fitted blazer, and that takes a long time to teach. And I know you guys are already tired of all this talking and not getting things done. But this is the stuff we got to do before we can take it to the sewing machine. We've done a little bit on the sewing machine, but we still got a long ways to go. Now by next time I see you, I'm going to have a new pattern for me, because mine doesn't fit. So when you see my new one, it's going to look totally different. And I'm also going to have it shaped so it's a narrower skirt, you know. It's going to look cute, I think. And it's what I do. You know, you lose weight, you got to make a new one. That's why you have a paper one, you have a cloth one. It just works nice. Now, Miss Lisa's just starting to get tired. Her back's starting to hurt. So, you all know I got to take it a little more easy these days. But I'm still going to be doing these videos because I love teaching. And I want you to remember to like my video. Then you're going to hit the bell so you can get this over again, and you're going to subscribe. It's free. Free every time. Never, ever, ever will anybody pay for my lessons. I won't have it, because what was given to me freely, I freely give to you all. So thank you, and I'll see you next week.